All right, and it is now 2 minutes after 8. This is Morning Express, still in the newsroom. And in case you're joining us now, just a quick reintroduction of the guests that we have this morning. We have Julie Masiga, who is a journalist. We have Patrick Gadhara, who's also a journalist and a cartoonist. And last but not least, we have Victor Bwire, who is the programs manager for Media Council of Kenya. And we continue. We held your thought, Patrick Gadhara. I hope we are still holding it, because the discussion has continued even as we were off air.
Even as we were. But I'll make a few basic points. First, when we talk of media not colluding because they are competing, actually this is not true. We know they do collude. You know, it's not an accident that they were all preaching peace in 2013. You know, not an accident that when we had the digital migration, they all took the same stand and they all switched off their thingies at the same time. They do sit down and they do discuss, you know, and they do agree.
Media owners, editors, who sits down?
Yeah. So whether it's at the level of media owners, this is all part of the media.
Is that collaboration?
What I'm not doing is the mistake you guys, I think, are making, is you are conflating journalists with media. And I'm saying, no, media is a bigger thing, you know. And Kenya media itself, or media in Kenya, as you might call it, you know, is made up of both the journalists, the organizations that employ them, the people who own these organizations, the editors who make decisions, all of them. You know, and I'm saying that there are, at particular levels, there are different problems. There are problems at the journalistic level, obviously, you know, but there are huge problems when it comes to political government, I think, and I said a bit before, at the media owners level and at the senior editors and their management level. I think we've got a problem there. We've got senior editors and senior owner leadership admitted by journalists on TV interfering with how reporting is done, you know, with how coverage is done, pulling out stories or placing stories. You know, that happens. You know, we've got them firing editors, you know, Galava for writing an editorial, Gado for both being in GOK's good books. We know this happens. So let's not gloss over it. You know, let's be honest enough to address it. You know, I think, again, when we look at the coverage, and this is if the role of the press is to inform the people, and the people end up not being informed, we can't just fall back and say that the people are just...
Which this study you did.
Please give us my time.
But you are making a very strong statement.
Exactly, and you'll have your chance to rebut.
And this is a discussion, this is not a monologue.
Just as I keep silent when you talk, you know, you'll have your chance to rebut.
When did you do this study where people have not understood?
My feeling is this, and again, you might say that you think people understand, and you're right, you can say that, you know. And,
people understand,
we do our job. My feeling is it's not, you know, and I think that for a lot of people, they struggle.
What's the basis of your feeling?
Well, from the discussions I have, the interactions I have with people, it seems to me that there is a dearth of understanding of exactly what the court case, for example, was about. I think right now, in this period that we have, Julia said very well about some of the options that are being discussed. You know, I don't think that they're being really articulated to people. You know, about where we stand with the Constitution and whether or not that is a straitjacket. You know, we've had even like Raila yesterday saying, and I have also been saying the same thing. We set up the Constitution. You know, it is for us. It's not us for it. You know, but we need to start having those discussions when we can come up to a situation. In fact, right now with the Saffron Mofo thing, today I was listening on BBC, and they interviewed a representative from
the COO, I think, yes.
And he says he doesn't even have a contract with the IEBC. I'm surprised that it's a BBC reporting this, not our guys.
Not our guys.
But beyond this, no, actually it wasn't. It wasn't a Kenyan journalist.
It was focused on Africa.
It was
but the Star reported on
But my thing is beyond who actually did it. You know, the thing is, we need to start talking about the options we have as a country. And these are not NASA options. They are not Jubilee options. They're the country's options.
Right.
And we've got I think we're going to run into two competing constitutional principles where we are required by the Constitution, or we require ourselves to have a free, fair, transparent, credible, verifiable election, and we need to do it in 60 days, and we can't. What happens?
What are the options?
What do we sacrifice?
Allow me to take a few calls now. Let me take a call from Serem in Kericho. Good morning, and thank you for calling, Serem. Straight to your question or comment.
Good morning, Mr.
Morning.
I was just to tell you that Mr. Kandara is just talking the truth thing, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So what the media is doing. Hello, Gidonga.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Gidonga.
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead, Serem.
Hello, Gidonga.
I can hear you.
Hello, Gidonga.
Yes, Serem. All right, I think we'll drop that call. And maybe this is what's happening, Gadara. We are putting it out there, but they can't hear us. They're not reading. It's not really our fault. It's not our fault that I can't communicate with him. That's exactly what's happening. Let me take a call from James in Kisumu. James? James in Kisumu? All right, James in Kisumu, if you can hear us, to your comment or question, please.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, James.
Hello?
Yes, go right ahead.
Hello?
James, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, my name is James Omondi from Kisumu.
Yes, James.
I wanted just to thank Gadara for being very candid.
Oh, glowing tributes for Gadara today. Go ahead.
You're bashing Gadara for talking the truth. You've not answered the question about who is behind this media, who is not allowing media to do its work independently. And the regulator, Buire, is actually making even viewers and consumers of media information to be worried. And that is, media houses should be worried about the regulator who cannot allow people to consume the right thing. Gadara has put it correctly. Who is this who is not allowing you to do the right thing? Your example is when you are not relaying results and you are the polling station. Nobody has held the hands of the reporter, yet you have those, what you call the information which is coming from the polling station or the, what you call the constituency tallying center. Is it not correct that you are not answering the person from Kajiado? Hello?
All right. Yes, thank you, James.
You are not answering the person from Kajiado who asked, who is this who is controlling media?
All right. Thank you, James.
And that question should be answered. It is very correct that we should be able to understand why we should consume either the right thing or wrong things. You know, media is like medicine.
All right.
It's either killing or it is research.
All right, James, thank you very much. I think we've got your point. Let's move on to Patrick. Patrick, good morning, and thank you for calling. To your comment or question. Patrick, good morning, and to your question or comment.
Yeah, good morning.
Yes, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Yes, I can hear you. Go right ahead.
Yes, what I think while at times the media is censored.
Yeah, go on. Patrick, I think they
go ahead and even censor themselves even more.
Okay.
An example being the situation where the communications director asked them. An example being when Francis, the communications director, asked them not to report anything before any results before the IEBC reports it. They were not told not to cover the IEBC while they're reporting. Yet out of all 290 constituency, they never even covered one result being reported. So they went ahead and censored themselves, even more than the communication director censored them.
All right. Thank you, Patrick. I think we've got your gist of conversation. And let me start with Victor. We seem to be going back to the same question. And I'll want us to advance because of time. We'll need to finish at some point on what we should expect on the 17th, should the elections take place on the 17th. Because evidently the media is being criticized at this point in time for not having our own tallying center, as it were. So is there somebody controlling media? Or is there a hand?
I think that discussion will ever happen because people don't. To tell me that 139 radio stations, 66 TV stations, 60 publications, and a number of online publications are controlled by one person is an understatement. Nobody can control. Two, even including those opposition, people who are in the opposition, for example, they own radio stations, we know. How has their content been different from this other media we are accusing? You know, we need to do those studies instead of just making allegations. That if you listen to particular outlets that are owned by the other party, that the coverage has been different from these others we are accusing, then we are making those conclusions. But I have listened to all of them, and the coverage is the same. 3, if these administrative and laws are being released to control how media, to manage how media will give, and none of us criticizes that. When those administrative structures were being given, when the CS was threatening to ban, to withdraw licenses, none of us raised anything. We kept quiet. And now we are saying we didn't know why media did not announce results. Yet these conditions were given before elections. So all of a sudden we've just been born and realized media was not giving results. So that's also selective amnesia. Criticism of media when it suits us must be relooked so that we are genuine in what we are raising. 3, let's be specific. And I've raised this thing. People say media is corrupt. And I say, okay, give me specific cases because there's a corruption commission. They give me specific, and we act. But sometimes, oh, no, I don't want wars with the media. So how would we solve the problem? So these generalized statements of saying, we know, and we have said, there are individual mistakes journalists are making. It's not in question. But it can't be media is this.
It's not a blanket.
Let's isolate cases so that we intervene and help. Where we have noticed Victor had this problem, we notice it and help. That's how people help an institution grow. But if we continue to this blanket condemnation, blanket statement, it will not help us grow.
All right.
17th, yes, obviously there are lessons that have been learned. You have seen, obviously, people are changing, given also the reduced number of now candidates. You know, remember, we have also too many candidates. And media tried to give spaces, but it was impossible. But with now a few candidates, largely presidential, hopefully, and I have seen there's some trend towards some analytical, bigger space being given to some of these, the parties that are involved. And other voices, people have raised, I've seen the weekend editions bringing out analysis of the constitutional crisis that we might face or not facing. Those challenges are there. We have seen media gave Maraga a platform to raise those things he's raising. That's the space we are talking about. And media is doing what is practically and professionally possible.
All right. Julie, as we are winding up now, what is it that you'd expect the media to do different come the 17th?
I would definitely expect media houses to have people in every constituency watching to see what is happening, recording everything that happens, especially to see irregularities. Because I think the biggest problem that we faced in the first election was that the election was bungled. And there was a bit of confusion on how to relay this information because things were not happening as they should have done. As I said, from what I have heard, in some polling stations, Nairobi was making an announcement, whereas the votes were still being counted. So there was much happening behind the scenes. There was also a lot of pressure brought to bear by government on the media, which we also struggled to deal with in the reportage. But on 17th, or whichever day it is, I think we just need to be present to record exactly what it is that's going on, and then to say it. I think what we didn't do this time is just tell the people that a result has been announced in Nairobi. Meanwhile, we're still counting in Kisumu, wherever, whichever constituency you are in, and this is the state of events as at now. I think there was an information gap, and it was filled by IBC. So we can't let that happen. As the fourth estate and the voice of the people, we need to let people know what's happening, whatever that thing is.
All right, Gadara, as we wind up.
I think the first thing we need to acknowledge as President, this is where I think our major differences with, at least mine with what Victor said, is that the problems that the media faces are not isolated issues, are not isolated problems, failures by individual journalists. These are systemic problems. These are structural problems. And I think the media needs to have an honest discussion about what they are, about how they've behaved, how they've been perceived to behave. You know, and really have a real soul searching. I don't think there are problems that they can fix within a month, if you will. You know, they can be mitigated. There are things we can do, but they've got to be acknowledged. I think as we approach the elections, we really need to have a firm commitment from media. We thought we had one before. They would cover things, especially after the KI decision, that they would cover it at the constituency level. Yet what we really saw was a relaying of what the National Tallying Center was saying. We need a firm commitment from media that this is what they will do, that they will be present at those polling stations, at those tallying centers, at least at the 290 tallying centers, if not at the 40,000 polling stations, at least at the 290 tallying centers, constituency tallying centers, and they will report live, if possible, but at least report what is announced there. And in case there is no announcement, which is a breach of electoral law by itself, in case they are denied being there, to report that and to report it in good time so people can start earlier on understanding that there are things that are not working. So we don't end up with the situation we have now, whether the election was correct or the numbers are correct becomes a political football. The people who we depend on to be a check on how government is working is the press. So run your own thing, have your own show, have your own tallies. Right. I've been saying this from before. Do it. And I don't think, just finish off, it's not really true, Victor, that people didn't make noise when Musharu came out and threatened the press. In fact, the people who went to court wasn't the media. It was Africog that went to court, to say that Musharu should not do this.
Was it reversed?
All right, we'll start another conversation here this week. I want to get Victor's closing comments.
Right.
I think, thanks, a lot is happening, the soul-searching thing we are talking about, because journalists are also human beings and are open. A lot of reorganization and rethinking and reapproach to how they will do it is happening. The mistakes that we saw, and quite, in fact, in part of the discussion we are having, is the journalists on the ground's experience and the editor's experience is different. Many of the journalists I've met outside now are saying how they filed all those stories. How they never saw light of day is another discussion. So in fact, part of it, we have invited some of those journalists to come for that discussion with the editors, so that the frustration is also on journalists who are there, filing those stories. In fact, I have clips here. We'll show you at another stage, where even now the people on the ground are saying, we know you are bought. If this one doesn't come out tomorrow, don't cover my event any other time. So you can see already that frustration even on the journalists on the ground. So those are reflections. We have invited editors through the various, so that we have this reflection and see how well do we improve. The issue of tallying, obviously people have discussed about it. We need to look at the existing structures and see how will it be tallying, because the challenges that were on the tallying thing are bigger than just media. When even returning officers were reporting from media, they were watching and saying, let's see what, because Nairobi has that, I don't have that. So it was very difficult for even now the local-based journalists to give when the returning officer is reading KTN.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have to wind it up right there. Julie Masiga, Patrick Gadhara, and Victor Bwire. That's the newsroom. It's now 21 minutes after 8. We're taking a short break. Morning Express continues in just a bit.